Today's video is sponsored by the online weaving school, where you will find over 60 classes available for single purchase and a variety of memberships. There is really something for everyone. I will leave a link in the description box down below so that you can check that out. Hi weavers, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be going over 3 ways that you can jazz up your plain weaving. Now, plain weave is absolutely gorgeous. I've been doing a little bit of it here, and really it is the basis of all weaving, isn't it? Plain weave is what got me interested in weaving in the first place. It's so beautiful, the over-under interlacement, and it's what pretty much all new rigid heddle weavers will start with, is just a basic plain weave. You can go on weaving plain weave for a long time and not get tired of it. But there are some times when you're just like, I think I just want to have a little bit of fun with this. And so today I'm going to show you 3 ways you can do that. Before I get started on the techniques, I would like to take a moment to ask you to like this video, subscribe and share with anyone you think would be interested in it. And to also tap the bell notification so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Let's launch right in. The first technique I'm going to show you is, I admit it's very basic, but I want to start with basic and work my way up. Even with basic techniques, there are usually a number of variations that you can do to really change it up. What I'm going to do is introduce some other colors to make some stripes, and I just want to show you a few different ways that you can vary your stripes to get quite different effects. I'm going to bring in just a little bit of blue. Now this sampler, I have all the details on my blog and I'll post a link to that down below. So I'm going to have all the yarns that I've used, all of the colors, all of the lengths and calculations and so on. All the info will be there in a printable PDF for you. So definitely want to check that out. So just in the down shed, I've just introduced a row of contrasting color. My warp that I have here is quite a dark, I guess you'd call it a maroon. And so introducing a lighter color that's still a very strong color is a good thing. It really makes it stand out. Now I could go many different ways with this stripe at the moment, but what I'm going to do is weave just a few more rows of plain weave in my maroon, and then I'll bring it back in another blue. So I'm going to say do 3 picks of my maroon, and then I'm going to bring my blue back in. And then I'm going to do another 3 picks of maroon. So just a repeating sort of pattern here, and already you can see that it's quite striking because of the contrast of the colors, and also because I've just done a single row of the blue. It makes it like little dots or little dashes, and that really stands out. So that's 1, 2, I'm going to go around the blue so that I can catch that and carry it up the side. If you need to see a video about carrying colors up the side or getting neater edges when you're using multiple colors, I have a video for that, and I'll put a card for that up in the top right hand corner. Okay, so I've done 3 of my maroon, and now I'm bringing my blue back in. I'm just doing my usual lazy thing of having these messy little balls of yarn rather than trying to wind them all on shuttles, because I've just got too many colors that I wanted to use today to bother winding it on shuttles. And also because it's a sampler, it's not a really wide width, so I can get my hands through there okay. All right, so you can see here I've got my little 3 rows of blue, and just on its own, that's just kind of cute, and that really jazzes up your plain weave. Such a simple thing, but it really makes a difference. So you could do like repeating bands of that, or say you were doing a scarf, you could just do some on each end to make them match up. There are tons of things that you could do. I'm doing a few more plain weave in my maroon, what have I done? I'm doing 3. And then I'm going to bring my blue back in, but I'm going to alternate the blue and the maroon now. 1 pick for 1 pick. And I'm going to make sure that those yarns go around each other at the sides so that I can carry them and keep the edges neat. So this is just to show you how it might look if we alternate the colours. A little different to the first part, but still using the same colours. So now we still have like the dots, but they're on top of each other. So we could build up rows of dots. That would look nice. And getting this kind of effect also would depend on whether you're using one weft yarn that was the same as the warp yarn, as I am here. If you used 2 different coloured wefts and neither of them were the same colour as the warp, then you would be getting different effect. So I'll just do a couple more of this one just to give you an overview. Now, if you were an absolute beginner weaver, you would definitely benefit from taking my beginners class. It's called Woe to Go Beginners Rigid Heddle Weaving. And I've had a ton of new weavers go through the class, and everyone has told me how much they love it and how much it helped them. So I know it would help you too, and I'm going to link to that down below as well. All right, so there are the rows of closer dots. Now I'm going to do 2 picks of each colour. So I've just done 2 of my maroon, and now I'll do 2 blues, and we'll see what effect that gives. So that's 2 blue. Doing a sampler is such a good thing to do. I know that it can be hard to get past that feeling that you're wasting yarn, but if you think of each sampler as like a mini class for you, if you're willing to pay for weaving classes, you should be willing to do samplers at least sometimes, because each one is like a little class. For example, I have never paired this blue with this maroon before, and I didn't really think too much about the choice before I started. I've just got a little basket of different colours in front of me, and I grabbed the blue thinking that that would contrast pretty well on camera. But now that I'm weaving it, I see that I actually really like these 2 colours together, and I wouldn't have known that if I had not done this sampler. A sampler can teach you a lot, and it can also be a form of insurance for the project that you want to weave, because you sample everything first, and then you can be almost guaranteed that your project is going to turn out well, or that there aren't going to be any nasty surprises because you've already done it. You can also incorporate other colours, multiple colours to do stripes, and multiple different types of patterns and sequences and repeats. So have a go at that and see what you think. It's really fun to just play around with. The next technique I want to show you is a great one if you want to incorporate a bit of texture into your piece. I've actually used this technique. If you have seen my Luxe hand towels, that pattern's available in my Etsy shop, but I do employ that technique in one part of those towels, and it's very effective. So what we're going to do is make some loops, and to make loops you're going to need something like a knitting needle. The size depends on the size of loops that you want to do. Here I have got a US size 7 4.5 millimeter needle, and make sure that it's a nice slippery one, but not so slippery that you're going to lose all of your loops over and over. So my last pick in the maroon was finished in the upshed. I'm going to stay in the upshed for a moment and introduce my new yarn, which is this contrasty lighter pink color. And I'm going to tuck it into the selvage, just, what have I got, 3 warp threads deep. Tuck that in and then go into my down shed. And I use this contrast yarn as though I'm going to weave a pick, but I'm not actually going to weave it in the regular way, so I can just pop that aside. So I'm going to use the knitting needle to pull up my loops. You can pull them up through every space if you want to, or every other space or whatever. I'm going to pull them up through every space. So if I look here, I can see I've got my contrast yarn going around the edge, and then I've got it going over one of the warp threads that is down, and that's a whole thread. I'm going to pick up that bit of yarn with my needle, and then I'm going to go over the next warp thread just like the yarn does, and I'm going to pick up the yarn with and place it on the knitting needle and keep going across in that fashion. So every time you see a space where the weft yarn, which is my pink yarn, is just sitting, hanging out, you can grab it and put it over your knitting needle. You can get a bit faster at this as you go along, and just keep sliding that needle through as you go. Good to keep this weft yarn nice and loose because it's going to take up a bit of slack as you go across. Of course, because we are lifting up those loops out of the shed. Okay, that was the last one there, and then my weft exits the shed there, so I just leave that part because there's nothing more to pull up. Then I can place that knitting needle there, and I'm going to try and beat just a little and then go into the next shed, which is the up shed, and then I can just slip my needle out and I'm left with these loops. But crucial thing here is to follow it up with the next with your background weft, which for me is the maroon, and that's going to help to hold these loops in place. So there we go, into the down shed now. So I could choose to do another row of loops right away if I wanted to, or I can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a couple of picks of my maroon, my background, just so that I can have little fluffy rows of loops. Take my loop yarn in again and pop that to the side. This time I'm actually starting on the left hand side, which is more difficult for me because I'm not left-handed. But if I start picking up from here, I'm not allowed any slack on this side. It's just going to get tighter and tighter. So I need to pick it up from the side that is going to allow some slack to come across so that I can continue to pick these loops up right across. So I'll try and maneuver my hands around so that you can see what I'm doing. It's a bit tricky. I'll also, on the next row, give you a close-up of this. So just picking up and placing loops, lost that one. Okay, I'm going to have to swap hands again because it's just a bit of a jumble if I don't. I'll finish off this row and then we'll do a close-up on the next row of loops. Okay, there's the last one. So I can just take that down, beat it into place and go into the next shed, and I can take my stick out and follow up with some plain weave. Now remember, when you're doing loops, you only have to have one row of plain weave technically, but it depends on what sort of look you're going for. If you want your loops to be really full and close together, then just one row of plain weave is fine. If you want them spaced further apart, think about doing 2, 3, 4 rows. Okay, so ready for the next loop row. Taking my contrast loop yarn through the shed and just popping that to the side with a bit of slack. Then in comes my knitting needle and I'm picking up through the gap between those warp threads. So you've got 2 warp threads up and 1 down in the middle, and the loop yarn is on top of the one that's down in the middle, and that's where we want to pick up from. So once again, I'm trying to do this without obstructing your view. But basically I just reach down and pick up that little bar, usually with my fingers, but perhaps you can see a bit easier if I do it like this. You're just grabbing that bar of yarn and making it into a loop on the knitting needle. Some people use these to make nice soft washcloths and things like that. And as I said, I did use this technique a little on my luxe towels. So you can basically use it for an entire piece if you have that level of patience, because it does take a while. Or you can use it as a pretty textural border by doing it in sort of bands like we're doing here. Getting there. Almost. And then we have to stop because our weft yarn is exiting the shed right here. So we've run out of space. And we can just beat that down, pop it up into the next shed. You can either weave your next shed now while this knitting needle's still in there, or you can take it out as I did the other times. Try both ways and see what suits you better. Okay, now I'm in the down shed and then out comes my needle. Probably does give neater loops if you do leave the needle in until you have woven the next shed. So if I wanted to, at this point, I could just cut that pattern weft and pop it into the next shed and finish off there. And then if I followed up with a few more rows of plain weave, then I would have this cute little fluffy section. And you could do as many of those as you wanted. I'm not so proud of my left-handed effort here. Some of my loops are a bit inconsistent. Oh well. Another thing you can do with the loops is you can actually use them in strategic places in order to fill up patterns by making shapes. So you could make squares, you could make pictures, all kinds of things. It'd probably be best to sort of draw things out on graph paper first to decide where the placement of where things were going to go so that you could build up your picture. But yeah, all sorts of fun things you can do with this, and it feels really nice when you rub your hands over it as well. All right, next up we're going to try and do some butterflies, or something that looks a bit like butterflies anyway. This is a fun technique. So we're going to start in the down position because we're going to do some pickup. You also need a pickup stick. No, this pickup stick is not the right size for this Sampleit loom, but never mind, I'm going to use it anyway because it's what I've got. So for the pickup, we're going to do 4 up and 6 down. Okay, so I'm going to do that behind the heddle. You can do yours in front and then transfer it to the back if that's easier for you. 4 up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4 up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. I'm not going to have an even one here. I would need a couple more warp threads to make it even, but that's okay. That's part of sampling as well, that the things that you don't plan for happen, and then you know in your proper piece that you need to do it a certain way. And then we pop into neutral. Now I've got 2 weft yarns that I'm going to use, and I'm actually going to use them together in the same shed. I'll show you what I mean by that. So our first shed is to just leave the heddle in neutral, bring the pickup stick forward and turn it on edge. That creates our shed. And you can either wind these 2 yarns onto a stick shuttle together, or you can just insert them separately. Your choice, depends how many of them you're going to do. If you were going to do a lot, I would definitely go with the stick shuttle option. But the idea is to have them lay next to each other. Then we can pop the pickup stick back and beat that in. And then we're going to follow up with some plain weave. And I'm going to go around the edges so that I'm catching the colour. So that's 1 shed of plain weave. 2. I think I'll probably do 4. 3 and 4. So usually floats this long are not so desirable, because if you have a woven piece that you're going to use, of course these floats are going to get caught on things, right? But we've got a different thing in mind for these floats. This is not really a practical weave. It's better for a decorative piece, a wall hanging or something like that that's not going to be used as much. It'd go okay on a scarf, just if you didn't want to be washing it all the time, that's all. Okay, so we're back in the neutral shed, and I'm going to bring the pickup stick forward and on edge once again, and then I'm going to go through with the same colours in the same order. So I started with pink last time. I'm going to take pink through first again. And then the green, and just have them laying and then beat. And then I can do another 4 of my plain weave. Of course this can be varied, you can do more or you can do less plain weave, but I just really wanted to do a few bands of this to show you how they look. That's 2. As you can see, this is not difficult to do with a pickup stick. It's quite easy and very effective. very contrasty. Four, okay. Back in neutral, pick up stick again. So I want to do one more repeat of this because you're probably thinking by now, well, they don't look like butterflies. No, they don't yet. But that's the trick that I'm going to show you. So taking those colours through, one after the other, in the same order as before. And then I'll follow up with my four picks of plain weave again. 1, 2. I'm going to go under these threads to carry them up the side a little. 3, 4. Then I can just pop back into neutral. Now, actually I'm going to finish off those contrast colours because I just want a little band of this. So I'll just tuck them into my next shed before I go on, just to tidy things up a little bit. And then I've got my background weft ready to go again, but I'm not going to do that just yet. So I've got my long floats of my doubled yarn, and I've got these lovely little spots in between that kind of look like candy apples or something, toffee apples. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to carefully insert them into the middle of these floats, but I'm being careful not to get my background fabric at all. So if you can see, the scissors are completely independent of the background fabric, and so are these floats. And I'm going to snip them, and then I'm going to snip the next ones right up the middle as well, and the last ones. Good to have sharp scissors for this. And then you have these kind of squigglies. Okay, I'll admit that they look a little bit more like, I don't know, octopus or something, or spiders maybe, with little legs coming out. So that tells me that maybe to do butterflies I need some smaller amount in the middle. So I did a pickup of 4 6. Maybe I should try 2 6. Let's try that. So I'm going to do 2 up and 6 down, 2 4 6, 2 up, 2 4 6, 2 up, 2 4 6, 2 up, 2 4 6. Oh, this time I've got an even number 2. All right, yeah, let's try that so that we can see a variation on this. Okay, so we had the up, we had the neutral shed, and we put the pickup stick up to lift up these sheds. What shall we do this time? Should we do the same coloured yarn or different? Trying to decide. I don't know. Oh, all right, I'll go with the yellow and green, no. Yellow and blue, no. What about yellow and red? All right, we'll do yellow and red. I'm not sold on those colours together, but I wanted to have something contrasty, something different to last time. All right, so once again, taking these yarns in, oops, there goes my stick. laying them on top of each other, and we can go into the upshed. I'm going to tuck these tails in at the side, and then I can weave my background weft through that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now ideally I probably would have, I think I would have done a bit more plain weave in between this band of spidery butterflies and this band, because they're too close up on each other. But once again, it's a sampler, so I can get away with that. So back into neutral and pick up, stick forward, and then we'll bring these two through again. Yellow first, and red. I'm going to take the red around the edge because see, it's going to pull into the shed too much if I don't. So once again, this would require a bit of planning in an actual project to make sure that your edges are all balanced and everything. I'm pretty way off here. Okay, and then we can carry on with the plain weave. I'm going to do 4 sheds again. I just have to restart my yarn there. Oh, really not loving this yellow and red on maroon. Like, what was I thinking? I don't know what it reminds me of. Maybe school colours or something. Awful. Okay, it's all right. It's only a sampler. Now, into neutral and pick up, stick forward again, and then we bring our yellow back in. Then the red on top of that. Yeah, this is the last little sequence I'll do of these colours, these unfortunate colours, just to show you how the different placement will look. And hopefully they'll look more like butterflies, otherwise I'll have to stop calling them butterflies, won't I? I'll have to call them spider creatures. So finish up with my plain weave again. Four rows of that. Okay, now I can bring my scissors back in and have another go. So carefully, scissors in, not cutting any background fabric. Right up the middle. Oh, this is better. Even if the colours are awful, they do actually look more butterfly-like this time because they have better proportions. So the dots in the middle are the bodies and these are the wings. You can also, if you wanted to, you could trim down the wings depending on what you were going for. But yeah, that's more butterfly-like. I still really like this little candy apple one down here. I really like the 3 little dots with the fringes at the side, but admittedly they don't look like butterflies, but these ones are much better. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, learning about these fun techniques of stripes, loops and butterflies. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot, and I want you to let me know in the comments down below Which one of these techniques did you like best, and are you going to give one a try? I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget, next week I will have part 2 of this series, so you can watch out for that. Until next time, happy weaving.